Yeah, 2012. As Lord Enki, it's like things is given in information differently. You know, you could say the way we do things from that time when the 2012 incident happened, it's like consciousness changed. There was a difference in the frequency and pulse of the sun. It changed. It started flickering faster. And so nobody really understood what was going on. We took it as just the end of a calendar century or whatever the case may be. But it was more deeper than that. The fact is that, well, it's kind of windy out here. Hold on. Yeah, it's better now. Like I was saying now, with that shift in consciousness and the sun started pulsing faster, and what the Mayan was trying to say was this coming new us, this new us, you could say, in the pulsing of the sun and the end of the calendar equate to like your body and yourself was put into maintenance mode, or what we would say in computer terms, or your phone, you put it into activation mode, where you're about to go through a process of renewal or upgrade. So now, when this frequency started and the higher pulses started coming, a lot of people's ears started ringing. And with their ears started ringing, if you notice from 2012 all around the world, it started a lot of riots. A lot of people started going against the government. So it was a lot of coups and a lot of turnover. It's like people woke up from the sleep they was in. It wasn't no all of a sudden a big topple of regimes. It was more of a spiritual consciousness, a rise of our genetics. More DNA had activated in us. Now the thing to it is like the common person who received these energies and this upgrade, they're gonna all be more intuitive. But now you see there's a lot of people that wasn't actually accepting this energy because they was in some type of fantasy world or whatever the case may be, working too hard, raising their kids, just misinformed, out of the loop. And it's not even that you needed somebody to read it to you or you see it on the news, but it was something you felt. It's like a spirit. Now, this spirit from 2012 on, if you notice, they started this Nibiru is coming. With this Nibiru coming now, you're talking about the actual word Nibiru. And you equate it to some planet coming, the 13th planet or whatever. What about it's the 13th strand in your DNA? And what we call now Nibiru is the Hebrew word, Hebrew. Nibiru, Hebrew is the same word, right? Why is that important? It's because when you look at the word Hebrew, the word means crossover. When you look at crossover, it's a gene called your crossover gene. That this is like another breed of people come. When the gene does a crossover, it gives like a unusual trait or an old hereditary trait. Like say your past ancestors now features will be seen on you. Your past ancestors' memories or whatever. This is part of what's called the crossover in genetics. And so that's Hebrew. And so that's why they say Abraham was a Hebrew. He was a crossover, a hybrid, a new breed. You understand what I'm saying? So it's still applied today with us. We still don't understand it. So that they telling us it's the 13th planet coming since 2012 called Nibiru. And these people call Anunnakis. Well now, when you look at how the Germans had did their research when they did the Nazis thing and the Holocaust and everything, they did a lot of data. They took research on the microscopic, subatomic, and the quantum world. And that's why they was able to make up UFOs and a lot of great technology. Part of this technology also now was to you could say categorize the different layers of the body in the astral world, or what you will call the ethereal world, ethereal energy. So this is now where you're talking dealing with chaos energy, or what they call the black body. And so once they learn that, you find out that what we call now Anunnakis, the people from the Sumerian, like Anu and Enki and Enlil and Murdoch, even Isis, Thor, Quetzalcoatl, all of these people now, your Osha and Ogun, these is actually already on you. They're part of your genetics. It's like your genetics have tunnels, and each tunnel or web connects you to something else. Well, in between each one of them, you have what's called gatekeepers. So each one of them got a position as a gatekeeper. The gatekeeper hold your consciousness in place so that you only stay within a certain realm of understanding or perception. And until you have an overstanding of everything that's going on and pass the tests of your own virtue and desires, then that gatekeeper lets you through. Once you pass through, then all of a sudden the same situation you was in will have a whole different look on you. It's like you're going from 2-dimensional view to a 3-dimensional view. So now with that, now you have all the different spirits that's on your body documented by the Germans in that book, Alien Races. These alien races, they made it out to be aliens to propagate a future plan. It's no alien races. If you study the occult and the esoteric knowledge, you will understand that this got to do with the prominence of the stars and the planets. They also what created human beings, their shadows. We first started off from the brightest of light, which they call the absolute, which, you know, everybody from the ancients equated to the sun. But now, you know, in the sunlight, you have what's called shadows, reflection and refraction. And that's where form starts to create, image starts to create. And as image started going through the nine planets and the 12 zodiac, image densified, and it had form. It became actually us. First, the astral form of your physical is created, and then an amoeba or a cell is generated in the male. As the male goes through life, he collects information, data, through genetic or eugenics interaction with people. And as his interaction grows, it becomes hereditary. This hereditary is kept in the seed, and the seed now is the one that presses and fertilizes the womb, and the woman provides her half, which is the same half, to make RNA and DNA activate. The mitochondrial, mitochondrial DNA in the man with his DNA. So it's a 50-50 thing where you can even trace down the man's line through the woman and the woman's line through the man. So anyways, that goes now into hereditaries. If you're looking into hereditary now, you will see that it's more correct than genetics, than your color, your skin. Two persons could come from the same womb but have different hereditary in them, meaning it's genetics that's not in one that passed on and was skipped from another that passed on to the other one. And so it could be passed on from thousands of years ago, even millions of years ago. And so you have that possibility in you, and usually it's always like that. It's the same like with the story of Cain and Abel, or Joseph and his brother Esau, whatever, Jacob and Esau, how one is always opposite from the other. That's how it come out. So with that in mind, you got now in the biblical sense how the Egyptians kept it. They had them worded as the children of God and the children of man. Everybody in actuality has a soul, but your soul isn't active in you. You know, that's why you see those Sumerian gods, all those things. They're part of your soul memory, like when you was first a shadow being, and then you was a demon, and then you wind up having virtues, and then you wind up becoming an animal. Once you became an animal, from the animal stage, it was just about eating, fucking, and surviving. And so animals just ran around looking for food and fight over territory. As we became a little bit more intelligent and learned how to dig and eat certain seeds, we learned how to make metals. So in the first period of those times when we first started, where we just had digging tools and eating seeds and fruits and nuts and all that, the Europeans came and they classified everything in a hierarchy of those people was called first savages. And before savages was animals. Anybody that was just there that just wanted to survive, fuck, eat, and sleep, and shelter. That's the animal. Then you got now the savage. The savage now was more trying to find something to dig and find food and all that stuff. You will see that in ancient pottery, where the pottery don't have no pots yet. They only got simple basic tools or digging tools. Now they changed it, and the Europeans started now their third class of hierarchy, which is now barbarianism. The barbarian era was when they finally made pots, when people learn how to cook. They considered that the first period. You could say that was the first time that we came across genetically modified artificial food was introduced to the body. Because for you to put something artificial inside your body, it meant that you couldn't just pick it up and eat it, because that would have been from God. For it to be artificial, you had to cook it. So heat was applied. So that was the first form of artificial food. And this was known because of the pottery. Pots was seen back then. Clay pots was being found. Spears started popping up. Bow and arrows started popping up. So this led to mean that wars took place. People warred and fight over territory, fight over food, fight over women. So that was the savagery period, the barbarian period, but it was more advanced than the savagery period. You look at each period as they took something from one period and added on to it and extended it. This is now evolution in consciousness. So after the savagery period, now you come to the civilization period, or civilized people. The civilized people, as far as in their hierarchy, is based upon the simple fact that they was able to take the pottery, take the foods that they was cooking and everything, and transcend it into now poetry and into letters from the animal sounds, and then to make words and to make plays and religion and culture and government. This is the stage we're on. And the only difference now, they went from spears and bows and arrows to firearms. Firearms made them more what you call a civilized nation, because they use ordinance to rule. No more everybody followed a law of nature and the law of cause and effect and the rules of Ma'at. Everybody now was forced to do what they had to do under the law of a gun. And so this is where your government came and implemented, where either you choose Islam, you choose Hinduism, Buddhism, or Christianity. All of those is one religion pushed out by one group of people, and they use that to take over everybody's psychological mind state. Every culture have the same story of a dying God or an immaculate God that comes back and saves the world, who have some disciples, who comes from a lotus flower, who has a Mary or Marie as a mother. And all of this now is all perpetrated on every continent and every religion and every culture, from every African culture to every Indian culture in the United States, and all the Spanish and Mexicans in the South America, all the pygmies and all them people in Australia, and all the Aborigines people, every continent, every little island in the Caribbean and all that, they perpetrated with different books to their Pacific God, but saying the same story. So being that it was all the same story, it means that it was fake. It was put there by somebody. How is this possible? The simplest way is because when we read the book of the Bible that tells us that there was a flood in the world, before the flood, when in the beginning God came and he created everything, that wasn't the actual way it was worded. That's the wrong translation. It was the earth was replenished from the first disaster, which was fire. And so from the first disaster, everybody was replenished. So when we picking up the Bible, it's picking up where everybody was already here. That's why when they tell you about Adam and Eve and they sent out Cain and whatever, they already had, Abel, was it? Cain, whoever. They went to the city of Nod, or the Nodites, and they had some place to go. So anyways, what I'm trying to say is that these stories was all perpetrated because they was here already from another epoch, before the fire. Those was already their stories. But it became our mythologies because they was preserving the story. So the peoples who preserved it was all the African tribes, all the Persians, all the Egyptians, all of them that started these earlier civilizations. They was the same forms as Bacchus. Bacchus was part of what's called the first tribes, which was the Hottentots. The Hottentots and the Etruscans had that side of the town. And those who made the Greeks, they wound up migrating to Greece, and they was the first black Greece, which is the story of Homer and the whole story of the Iliad and the Odyssey. Those is old African stories of the African gods. There was no gods of Europe and Greece and Rome. They took the African gods and redid them over and slaughtered the people. Now, this is what we're going to get into now, the slaughtering of the people. The slaughtering of the people was for a specific reason. They didn't just say, yo, either you listen to us or we're going to kill you, or or you accept this religion, Islam or Christianity, or die or get out the land. No, it wasn't like that. What really happened now, this is what I was so concerned about that made me go on my passion and my journey. Because you see, think about it before I even tell you. When you look at us as blacks, you see a group of people that's been shunned for years, for generations. I mean, take the modern times, the average white person walking on the same side of the street with you in New York. More than likely, she's going to shun over to the other side a little, hold a pocketbook, look at her husband or friend, and grab onto him, feel uncomfortable. You don't mean no threat, you just walking by. But this is the type of reaction a black person have to deal with on a daily basis. Then, if they see you shining, you doing something, you have a nice car or whatever, you're going to get pulled over. You're going to get searched. You ask the cop, what did you do? He said, well, I'm sorry, sir, I didn't know. But you're a black man with a nice car in a bad neighborhood. What do you expect us to think more than you're selling drugs? Well, that's what we have to expect. Why couldn't it be like, you're a white person in a bad neighborhood with an expensive car, so you're buying drugs? Why can't it be like that? Because they're afraid they might be pulling over a lawyer, doctor, or judge. You know, this now goes to the point to what I'm trying to tell you. Why did they kill off all the indigenous people instead of just making them accept their religion? What happened? Why did they write them out of history too afterwards like they never existed? And why did they take all their sacred writings and destroy them, hid them, put them away? And why do the black people still don't know who they are? Well, all of this now come around to the same questions that first I pondered on. And then, you know, you will feel for the black person as just a black person and still in this world striving and struggling, where you have billionaires, one or two people that have billions of dollars that could take people out of poverty, fix this world to make it a balanced world, but yet they take all that money for themselves and don't help nobody and donate to nonprofit organizations and sit that they do for tax write-off. That don't benefit nobody. But you can see what's the cause of other people's poverty. Us being lazy and us want to be laborers keep us in that suspended state. We could never grow because being a laborer only give you the price of living. The price of living is just your bills, and you have to go back and labor some more. So you become what's called a liability. And the thing with liability is that you got assets. Assets pay for liabilities. You're your own asset to pay for your liability, and you're your liability. You have to take yourself out of the liability column and get assets. So your assets pay for your liability. So now, let's look at the blacks on the whole. What happened? What took place? This is the big story. Well, I'm going to tell you now. Let me see. We got time. I'm going to run this out for the 30 minutes because this is how we have to do it. We have to do it. What took place is that this story I've been telling y'all about the indigos and demons. You see, I first caught on with the Chaldeans. For a long time, I've been always wondering, there's no place called Chaldean. And there's no people called, place or people called Chaldean. That's a fact. I've been researching it from like the 80s. And so now, what is Chaldean? And I always wondered, and recently I came across demons. And I heard that from 3 sources. And so these demons now, which is black, 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 but a matted Glock black. Now, I'm trying to get the understanding that there is a group of people that people was afraid of. But these people was astrologers that studied the stars and came here and healed people. This is now from reading alchemical books of the forefathers of alchemy, the ancient ones. And all they tell you about is these guys that came, the Chaldeans. They wasn't like no other human. Only people who like them is the Egyptians, you know. And so you understand, these Chaldeans was like prehistoric people that still survived after what we call the primordial people, when genetics was changing over to these new races, and these sub-races still existed. I mean, the root race still had existed with the sub-race. And so that's why places all got destroyed, like Persia, Babylon. All of these places that got buried was to cover these last remains of the demons, including the flood. That was all a part of it. Now, before I go on to make this understandable, you will have to realize that if you was to take away everything off of this earth and it would just be the rocks, cheese, airs, water, you would be left with just those forces. Well, in those forces, you got air and water. Air and water is masculine and feminine. And so air at that time, it was called heaven man, not like we call it now Shu. And heaven man was actually a form of Jesus, or you could say Horus back from then. He existed always. And so in the stories of the Earth Chronicles, you hear how heaven man was dying to taste earth, dying to taste water, dying to walk, but just didn't have a body. So him and water fucked, and from him and water fucked, they made pollution. Pollution now wind up coming on the earth and spreading like a seed and germ and help everything. Now, the mythology in itself is not trying to give you the full understanding of what everything is going on, but the understanding is that there is higher forces that is governing everything. We're not seeing the whole picture. We're participating in something that is greater than us. And so with that being in mind, you understand now that when these forces came together, it first had an animal beast mentality. It wasn't actually us as how we are conscious beings. And so with that in mind now, those type of attributes was what the original purple indigos had, the original blacks, who was called Moors. That's why they murdered all the Moors. They cut their heads off. They didn't let none of them survive. They didn't let none of the ancient people survive. Their thing was to kill them. That's why they put the syphilis on the Indians. Right now, the reservation for the Indians is very, very small. Their numbers are depleted every year. And that's purposely done because of their genetic line. That's why we go to heredity again. You see, it's a lot of us who have that indigo star child genetics that goes back to the primordial beings. These primordial beings is 1 in 3. It's one person, but have 3 persons in one. They're the return of the Anunnakis now. You understand what I'm saying? So the Anunnakis actually came back from the 2012 vibratory frequency. That actually made you actually vibrate at their frequency, and within that pulsing of the sun, they was able to come back into your sheath body as an aura, which now connects to you as your spirit or your soul. And so now, when you saw this big consciousness shift, that was the Anunnakis. It's in you. Now, you would think that it was going to do something like, oh, you're going to fly and you're going to have powers and all this stuff. No, you already been an Anunnaki. You came from them. So only thing was they left you alone sleeping for a little while and came back. That's why when they came back, everybody woke up. People started having intelligence. Then you started seeing the ones who wasn't Anunnaki started descending in consciousness, playing video games, running around, going to clubs, trying to trap man with funny pictures on Facebook and on Instagram, making themselves out to be something that they're not. They start to, oh, look at me, shit, look at me. And attention, grab your attention and don't let it go. Your ears are stuck with them. Then you got the poor me ones, the one that's always sick and there's always something wrong with them. and it's up to you to offer some assistance. But this assistance isn't a one-time basis. It becomes every day. It becomes every hour if they could. And you will see that this now wind up having a separation of groups of people, brother and sister, household breakup, family breakup. And you realize that now everything has a reason. You say, why is this? What kind of God, what type of spirits would make a world like this? And you will come to realize it serves its purpose. The purpose of that is because you yourself, we all externalize everything. And so being that we externalize everything, you feel good when you get a house, you have a job, you have a car, you have a man, you got some new clothes, you have a new outfit. But you can't sit down in a bunch of mess with nothing and say you feel good. And so that's externalization of your emotional self, what you measure yourself with, how you see yourself. And so when this takes place, it's like you get to internalize yourself again. And that's what's the missing link here. Once you start internalizing yourself, you get to see that you're the one who is the creator. You created all the situations you're in. You created all the good that came in your life. Everything that you plot is like you're the one that's in charge of it, and it's up to you to either cultivate it or for you to just dwindle in it. And so you get a lot of people that wind up going down and dwindling in their own situations. And so the separation now between the two caused a lot of relationships to break up. A lot of people now started getting the twin flame put in them. Once the twin flame come into you, it make controversy between you and your mate. Y'all two don't agree no more because each one is trying to better one with the feminine principle dominating. The feminine woman is really masculine. And so that feminine energy is going to tell the truth about you. And you're probably not going to like to hear it, so that's what's going to happen. And you're going to feel bad about yourself. And so it make you want to get away from your twin flame and go better yourself. But that's part of the process. Y'all be back together. Even if you're not back together, the truth of soulmates and twin flames is soulmates is physical relationships. That's your soulmate. That's not divine, though, or anything of hierarchy or ascension. Real twin flames is an issue. It's an ordinance between you and some higher spirits, and both of y'all share the same spirits, and half soul, half soul. So when this happens is when the one out of the two become one with his body, his soul, and his mind. When he unite with his, automatically the other half twin flame unites, and they become spiritually one. And so now they get psychic visions and they connect with each other, but their purpose is not to come together. If they do, it's a plus. But even if they don't ever come together, which is what happens most of the time, is that the person who has the child is still going to have that twin flame in them. So if it was a man, his seed is going to look like the love of his life, that woman, when it enters out that woman's womb, that other woman's womb, to be exact. And if it's a woman, whoever that man is, that seed ain't going to look like him or have his personality. He's going to have the astral, spiritual soul of her twin flame still, regardless of who's the sperm donor. And that's how that works. So this is all a part of Enki's knowledge for you to understand what's going on in this world, for you to know what you have to do and not get caught up in the rapture and the traps of all this stuff that's going on with the media. Once you understand these things, it's like you alleviate a lot of question marks out of your life, and you align your circles, the Lord of the Rings. And once you align your Lords of the Rings, you coming through like a orb flying through. You know, I'm going to tell you about the orb in the next video. Stay tuned.